What's going on, guys? So today I decided to do an emergency Bitcoin daily video. Obviously the price of Bitcoin right now is not doing very well. We're down about 7%. So what the hell is going on? We're gonna dive in the probabilities of Bitcoin. In my last video, guys, I talked about the probabilities and I talked about a high probability of Bitcoin, going back down to the gray line where we are right now, which is the first standard deviation of the standard deviation range of Bitcoin, and that's exactly where we are right now, and it's acting as support. I also talked about a possibility of going even lower to the second standard deviation range, which is the purple line right here. As we speak, there's about a 68% probability that we bounce back from the first standard deviation right back to the means, which is the green line right here. So 68% probability of this happening. Personally, I would love to see a deeper pullback to the purple line, which basically is a 30% probability chance of happening. So there you go, guys. These are the probability for Bitcoin. If you're panicking right now, it's not the time to panic. In my humble opinion, I think this is going to end up being a beautiful dip buying opportunity. Hopefully we go to that purple line, which is the second standard deviation, and then there's going to be a 95% probability that we bounce to the reversal of the means to the green line, and only a 5% probability that we actually go lower to the red line right here, which would be the third standard deviation. All right, so now let's tackle the big elephant in the room, which is why is Bitcoin going down? So now we need to actually go into the markets and understand what is actually going on in the financial markets, because in my humble opinion right now, what we're seeing has less to do with Bitcoin and crypto, but more to do with what's actually going on with inflation. So today is a very telling story, right? The market is loudly speaking today, right? Obviously all the indexes are down, but then you have gold and oil which are up. So obviously you don't need to be a genius to understand that right now what we're seeing is a de-risking of asset and a lot of investors repositioning themselves for bad news about inflations in the next coming weeks. So obviously as we speak right now, the April CPI data is obviously not going to be good. It's going to be up. Inflation is picking back up, which is basically shaking the market out of the thesis of having 3 rate cuts at the end of this year, right? So obviously if inflation goes back up, the Fed won't be able to cut rates. So right now that's kind of what we're seeing, guys. It's more about macro. I also wanted to show you guys a newsletter that I love reading every week, which is called breakpointtrading.net. So obviously go over there. It's completely free, guys, by the way. The name of the gentleman is Dan Bird, and he's a very awesome OG trader, and he has been pretty accurate with inflation. So this is kind of like the report that he showed, basically time period that is going to be used for the CPI of this month of April. And as you guys can see, everything is up. So obviously there's a high probability that the April CPI is going to be higher than expected, and that's what the market is sniffing right now. So it was mostly about macro moving the market right now as we speak, with rates going higher and gold, oil going higher as well, which obviously is not good for the price of financial assets. And also another reason why, as you guys can see, we have the BTC liquidity map as well. So there was a lot of long liquidation going on in the market today, right? So if you guys recall in my video a couple of days ago, there was a lot of open interest on the long side, right? So a lot of longs to flush, and that's exactly what we did today with this big dump. It basically flushed almost everyone that was speculating using high leverage. And right now we basically are good to go back up technically, because now, as you guys can see, all of the open interest is now to the upside, because now there is more short liquidity, which basically means that the market should basically start picking back up after this flush. Looking at the probability range of the daily time frame of the S&P 500, if I zoom in to show you guys real quick, you guys can see we're already at a second standard deviation of the range, which basically means there's a 95% probability we bounce to the green line, which is the reversal of the means, and only a 5% probability that we go lower to the red line, which would be about 513 on the SPY. That would be about less than 1% downside left already. So this is why I am still bullish, guys, based on probabilities. I think we're gonna gap fill this gap very quickly in the next coming days already, and Bitcoin is also gonna follow back up. This is why I'm not too worried right now. So short term, guys, just like in my last video, I was talking about being bearish short term. Now we just had the pullback. Medium picture, nothing changed. I'm still bullish. Bigger picture, there is now 17 days left before the halving. Okay, so what's next for Bitcoin? Looking at history, Bitcoin always corrects close to the halving. So as traders and investors, we need to ask ourselves, what are the different scenarios that could happen in the next coming weeks? Personally, I see two scenarios possible before the halving. Scenario 1, we correct pre-halving, or scenario 2, we correct post-halving. I think it's pretty clear that the first scenario is playing out as we speak, which is very bullish if you want a parabolic run, meaning we will go higher faster once we have the halving. And this is why, guys, at the moment, Bitcoin is at about 65,000. And if we look at the cost of mining Bitcoin before the halving, it's at about 36,000, guys. Once we have the halving, this thing is minimum going to double, which would put it in that range. So if the cost of producing a Bitcoin doubles, right? And let's just be conservative and say, okay, it's going to go to about 60,000, right? That's a little bit less than double, but in that ballpark, that means that technically speaking, in less than 17 days, guys, the new floor for the price of Bitcoin is going to be 60K. So if you're buying right now at 65K, you know, do the maths, right? Like risk reward, it's pretty damn juicy if you ask me. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Just kind of, wanted to share this, talk about this. Sorry, it's kind of messy. It doesn't really make a lot of sense what I'm doing. I probably need to work on that. But anyways, I just want to make a good, quick video. Don't panic. Don't panic sell when you see these. Look at the probabilities. We're bullish. The cost of mining Bitcoin is about to double in 17 days, creating a brand new floor for the actual price per coin. Yeah, the macro doesn't look too good when we look at inflation, right? So that's always a possibility. But the halving is still going to happen. The supply crunch is still going to happen, right? And that's pretty much it, guys. So that's kind of my thoughts about this market. So I hope you enjoy. I hope it, helped you a little bit to give you a good guide. Oh, and by the way, I did buy a little bit today at 65. I added at the first standard deviation. I forgot to mention that. I didn't buy too much. Obviously, if we do go to the second standard deviation, the purple line, that's where I'm really going to be, aggressively buying before the halving. And then, having this correction before the halving, it's super bullish in my humble opinion. That means that once we have that halving, guys, that correction is behind us, right? We don't need to worry about it. And then it's just fun time for 4 months. All right, peace out. Take care. Have a blessed one.